Hello, welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about magic that's probably wrong, but fun to talk about. I'm Shauna.
I'm Leslie.
And today we are going to be doing one of our favorite things. We're going to be talking about the pre-release that is coming up for the new set, the Core 21 set. Mm-hmm. And in this video, we are going to be going through what is a pre-release, first of all, for those of you who have never done it before. And we're also going to talk about the little formula that we follow called the bread formula. A lot of people follow that when they're building a deck for pre-release. And then we're going to go through each of the commons and uncommons in the set that we think you should be watching out for. Everybody knows that there's mythic rares and rares that are something that you really want to have in a pre-release, but I mean, you can go look at that at anybody's videos. Everybody's talking about those, but let's talk about the little cards that are going to be doing the work for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get more uncommons and commons in your packs than you do rares.
You only get 5 rares, so generally.
So pre-release.
Yeah, what is it?
What is it? Well, a pre-release, for those that have never done it before, is super fun. The reason it's fun is because everyone starts at kind of the same level. I mean, obviously, if you've pre-released more, you're going to have a little bit of better idea of how to put together a pre-release deck, but you are going to go to your local game store. If you are doing this, of course, who knows if your local game store is having a pre-release, but if you're doing one at home, it could work the same way, I suppose. You're going to get 6 packs in your pre-release kit, and that's more than enough to build a wonderful deck from. Your local game store will probably have some land for you, so you don't have to worry about having land, but if you can bring your own land, bring your own tokens, that can definitely, or not, well, there'll be tokens in packs that you can use that are equivalent to the set, but if you bring your own land and your sleeves and your dice and stuff like that, then you'll be ready to go. But you're going to get these 6 packs, you're going to open them up, and you're basically going to build a 40 card deck that you're going to be then paired with other people that are getting 6 packs and building a 40 card deck with. So today we're going to talk to you about what you should do when you're building that deck. And one of the main formulas we like to talk about is the bread formula. So Shauna, what the heck is a bread formula?
Well, the bread formula is an acronym that stands for, B is for your bombs, so those cards that are going to win you the game. If you get them out, those are pretty, generally those are your rare cards, but we've got a few that we want to show you that you might want to think about. R is for removal, because that's the second most important thing. Pre-releases is all about creatures. You want to make sure you have ways to get rid of them. And E is evasion, so you want your own creatures to be able to get in there and do their job, so it could be game over faster. And A is for aggression, so again, that piece where you want to be getting in there and getting that person down to 0 life and you win the game. That's what it's all about in general. And then D is for dudes or other stuff that you put in there just to fill things out in your curve and make sure your deck is well rounded. So we're going to talk about some of those as well. Do you want to talk about some of the things you should look for when you're planning which color you want to go into?
Yeah, it's interesting because so how do you normally what do you normally do when you open your packs? How do you rearrange or look through your cards? Do you just look through them one at a time and put them aside, or?
Well, what I do when I'm going through is as I'm opening the packs, I separate them by color. If there's something that I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this card, I'm totally building around this card, I will set that aside because that might change as the opening progresses. And as I'm looking at the cards, I kind of think about different synergies and stuff that are there, because synergy is really important in any sort of deck, I think. But that's how I do it. How do you do it?
Yeah, similar. I also do a little bit, so I have 2 piles when I do my colors. I have kind of like, here's my green pile and here's my green pile that fits in bread. So that way when I'm going through, it's not just a matter of saying, oh, I have more red cards, so maybe I'll build red. I know that maybe I only have 2 that actually fit the formula, so I might not go in red. And you have a little bit faster idea right off the bat, or visual look at that. So so then once you've kind of done that and you see here's all the cards, what makes you lean into one color or the next?
First of all, I look at that bomb that I've pulled out, or bombs, and see if I have enough to support that. So, for example, I had a Ronus card that was such an awesome card, one pre-release. It's so good, but I had nothing in green really to support that. So then I had to set that aside, and so then I took a look at, okay, what do I have? And that whole synergy that was in my head as I was going through, oh, I had a whole bunch of stuff with +1/+1 counters on it. Well, then, okay, then that's going to be kind of that theme. So I look for those themes more than anything else. So I know you like to pick flying, which is a really, like that evasion thing. That
if I have enough evasion or enough flyers, I love doing flying, because it's hard. There's removal that will get rid of your flyers, but I think too that's a really good point, that just because you have a really good bomb, don't just pick your bomb and say that's the best card that I got in all of my packs, let's make it work. You have to figure out, like, hey, I don't have enough green cards to support this as my bomb, so I can't put green. I could sprinkle green in, but you don't want to sprinkle green in for a bomb. So what other bombs do I have? What makes a bomb then? How do you decide what's your bomb?
Well, if it's a card that if you play this card, you're going to win in the next couple turns, if not that turn, right? So it's something that does a lot of damage, or that wipes the board, or something like that.
In pre-release, it's usually a big beefy creature. If you can get a big beefy flyer, that's even better. But it's basically the big things that are game-changing, or the medium things that have some really good abilities that go along with them. So we, again, like you said earlier, they are mostly your rares, but there are some commons and uncommons. So it's almost a good idea to maybe make a pile of, here's my all my potential bombs that I got, and then evaluate those based on the other cards that you have that can support them, and then kind of go from there.
I've seen so many people in various pre-releases now that focus so much on that one card, and then they never see it. Because it's one card out of 40. Meanwhile, the rest don't do anything. They're just kind of...
They're just like, well, they're the right color, so... But
so that bomb cannot do any work for them. So this is why we are going through these cards that you need to look at. It's so important.
And I mean, Shauna, you alluded to it earlier too, but the reason we focus on commons and uncommons is because you only get 6 rares in you get 6 packs. That means you get 6 rares, maybe extras if there happens to be an extra one in your pack. But the likelihood of you getting that rare, that you've looked through all the rares and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to build an XYZ deck, you're probably not going to get that card. So don't go in with this plan that you're going to get, the Teferi, and that you're going to build a Teferi deck.
All I need,
it's not going to happen.
Great.
Your commons and uncommons are the things. So let's hop into it.
Let's get into it.
The first section that we're going to talk about is those bombs, which is perfect segue. So what's our first potential bomb?
The first potential bomb that we both got excited about was the Wildwood Scourge, which is a Hydra for X and a green. Enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, and whenever one or more +1 counters are put on another non-Hydra creature you control, you put another counter on this guy. So again, we've talked about in previous videos, but if you watch for things like the main thing of that card, so this one is, he comes in with a whole bunch of counters on him. The other thing is just nice to have. It's not necessarily going to have. So you want to make sure that it's not something that's situational. So he is good because he comes in with a whole bunch of counters on him. He's just a big boy. Whatever.
So regardless of whether you have stuff to support him, he's good. But if you have counter stuff to support the counter part of him, and you do use him as your bomb, definitely put the counter stuff in. So the next one is Warden of the Woods. It's another green one. So he is a 4 and 2 green mana. So his converted mana cost is 6. He's a 5/7 with Vigilance, which is awesome. And whenever it becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, you get to draw 2 cards. So someone tries to remove him, tries to do anything to him, tap him, whatever, spells, abilities, you get 2 cards. So even if they remove him, you replace in your hand 2 cards that could potentially help you as well. Really good card.
Yeah.
I like that one for sure.
Something else to note about bombs that we didn't mention yet is the fact that you put them out and that player has to focus on getting rid of that card.
Yes.
Otherwise, they're going to lose,
Yeah.
right? So, like that guy, he's a
Yeah.
5/7. They have to get rid of that.
Yeah.
It's vigilance. They have to get rid
Yeah.
of that. So that's what makes him a bomb. The Colossal Dreadmaw, it's been a bomb for a little while. It's a 4 and 2 green, a 6/6 dinosaur
Yeah.
that has trample. It's just, yeah.
We were talking earlier. We think that Wizards is like, we need more bombs in green. Let's put Colossal Dreadmaw in. Like every core set has
He's
Colossal
a 6/6
Dreadmaw.
trample.
Yeah.
Again, they have to get rid of him or he's going to do some damage.
So funny. So then moving on to red, we have Hellkite Punisher. He is a 7 mana cost 6/6 with flying and fire breathing. So fire breathing is basically you get to pay some extra mana and you give him +1/+0 until the end of turn. So he beefs himself up even more. This guy is fierce. He's awesome. If you open him, he's uncommon. So there's a good chance, but you pretty much want to auto include him. I mean, if you don't have any other red cards to play, you know what? Even if you had only him and all black, you could do a red-black.
Oh, yeah.
You know, like, he is a bomb that doesn't need
Yeah.
support.
Yeah, he's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Avon Gaggle Master for 3 and 2 white. It's a
I
little
just realized
4/3.
it's a goose.
Yes, because a group of geese is called a gaggle, is it not?
Oh my god,
I'm pretty
it so
sure.
is, but I didn't recognize
it's a
it was
Canada
a goose.
goose, yes.
Canada goose!
Yes, woo! A bird warrior, so it's a 4/3 flyer for 5, which is a little pricey, but when he enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life, and for each creature you control with flying. So we thought that as soon as you see this card and you have some other good flyers, you're going to want to put those together. The life gain is kind of irrelevant. He's still a 4/3 flyer, which is really strong.
Anytime you can swing in for 4 if they don't have anything to do with it, again, in a couple turns. Now you've done 8 damage, now you've done 12 damage, so for sure. So the next one is Riddle Form, and this one is a reprint, but we have found from using this one in the past, it is a very good card. So it's just an enchantment, which normally enchantments you don't worry about in pre-release, but when you cast a non-creature spell, you make him a 3/3. So not only is he not a creature that can be removed when you haven't cast something, they have to wait until you cast something to make it a creature unless they have enchantment removal. So he kind of protects himself in between.
Yep.
He just becomes a 3/3. You can swing in with him at the end of the turn. He goes back to being an enchantment. And then you can also pay 3 and scry 1. So he's got that extra ability. He's super cheap at 2 mana cost as an enchantment. And then the next turn he can be a 3/3 if you cast a spell or ability. So you will have to put some instants and sorceries in your hand if you're going to play with him, which can kind of put you behind when we're talking about going wide and creatures. But he's a decent card, and so that's why we put him in the bombs.
Yeah, he does a lot of work for you.
Yeah.
The Spined Megalodon for 5 and 2 blue, a big 5/7. Here's another big guy. This guy has hexproof, so he's going to be almost impossible to remove.
7 mana cost bombs, I tell you.
Yeah, whenever it attacks, you get to scry 1. You're going to be attacking with this guy because he's going to win the game for you, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
He's almost better than the 5/7 green one because he's got the scry as well as hexproof.
Yeah.
I mean, vigilance is nice, but I'm okay with tapping him. He's a common.
Yeah.
Blue players get all the good cards. Waker of Waves, another 7 mana cost, but this one is a 7/7. Creatures your opponents control get -1/-0, so they're already weaker. And then you can pay 2 if you want. If he's in your hand and you just don't need him or don't want him or don't have the right things to set him up, you can pay 2, discard him, and look at the top 2 cards of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the other into your graveyard. So it's kind of a pseudo scry there with 2 cards. You get to look at 2. There's nothing wrong with that. So yeah, he's a great card.
This next card I'm really excited about. A Gloom Sower. It's a 5 and 2 black for an 8/6 horror. But whenever it becomes blocked by a creature, that creature's controller loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. I love that kind of shenanigans. So, yeah, they're not going to want to block that. If they do, oh well, too bad. They're going to lose life anyways. So it's kind of nice. He's a pain for them.
Yeah, he's expensive, but the other bombs are pretty expensive too. Yeah. So again, they are uncommon and common bombs, which is why they're more expensive, and that's why they're uncommon and common. Of course, there's a ton of bombs out there that are rares that are going to be better than these cards, but you're not going to necessarily get them. These are, you got better chance for these ones. Yeah. So things to watch for. Gourmand is the next one. It is a 6 mana cost 5/5 demon with flying and trample. You do have to sacrifice another creature, which that's fine. There's always tokens. There's always creatures that you can sacrifice to get a 5/5. When it enters the battlefield, each opponent also has to sacrifice a creature. So it's okay if you're sacrificing a creature, because they are too.
Yeah, and you're going to see that there are some things in here that is nice when you sacrifice creatures. You're going to do some damage.
It's such a that's just such a good card. Yeah, so many good things.
Now this card is awesome. Probably going to be underrated, I think, by some of the bigwigs. But Lore Scale Kotal for 1, a green and a blue. Could be because I'm slightly biased towards Simic. But a 2/2 snake, and whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on this guy. So, yeah, here's counters every turn for sure, because you're drawing cards. Yes. And with blue in there, you might be drawing other cards as well. So he's something you want to think about building around, I think.
Yeah. If you get like a mana dork, and then you get him out on turn 2 with your mana dork, then turn 3, he's a 3/3. Turn 4, he's a 4/4. If not, he's just one behind. He gets really big really fast because your draw step matters. So now we're moving on to the next section, which is the second most important section. You figured out what bombs you have. So after that, it's removal time. And I cannot stress enough how important removal is. A lot of people will be like, oh, that's okay, I don't need removal. But everybody else is going to be putting their bombs, and they're going to be probably putting a lot of creatures in their decks as well. And if they run you over because you don't have enough removal, don't cry to us. We warned you.
We warned you.
So the first one that we have in our removal is a favorite amongst Magic green players everywhere. Titanic Growth is not a new card, but it is a good card for 2. It's an instant, which makes it a great combat trick, which is when you need to play this. It's not a removal if it's not a combat trick. Target creature gets +4/+4 until the end of turn. So you swing in, or you wait and you use it as a block. You use your creature as a blocker. Boom, 2 mana for extra 4/4.
Yeah,
it's a great card. Don't see coming. You got to make sure they don't see it coming.
And then Thrashing Brontodon, which overall is an awesome card just by itself. He's a 3/4 for 1 and 2 green. Such a great card, and it has you pay 1 and you sacrifice Thrashing Brontodon and destroy target artifact or enchantment. So that might not be too much of a problem in a pre-release, but it's there if you need it on this awesome body. So use it.
It's got a great body. Those dinos.
Yeah.
Long neck. Return to nature for 2. You get to choose one. So it's versatile, which is why it makes it into the removal section for us. Target artifact, target enchantment, or you can exile target card from their graveyard. So 3 good options there that you may need to use. I would say this is almost an auto-include. A lot of times, a lot of these things will say, put it in your sideboard because you don't know if they're going to have an artifact or an enchantment. There is a pretty good chance in every single game there'll be at least one of those that you need to worry with, so just put it in your deck.
Hunter's Edge for 3 and a green. It's a sorcery. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. There's my counters again. And then that creature deals damage equal to its power to target creature you don't control. So it is green removal at its best.
Yeah.
Rabid Bite. You don't actually fight. You're just dealing damage from your 6/6 Colossal Dreadmaw that becomes a 7/7.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm 7 damage to that creature. Sorry, goodbye.
Yeah, it does cost 4, but it gets a permanent counter, so that's awesome. So Volcanic Geyser is basically the old Banefire trick. But for those that don't know what Banefire is, we got to stop referring to old cards. We're becoming those.
Yeah, we're becoming those magic
people.
players.
We hated it at the beginning when it was like, stop talking about stuff that I don't know about. So Volcanic Geyser is an X and 2 red mana for an instant, and it does X damage to target or to any target, which means it can be them, it can be one of their creatures, one of their planeswalkers, which is great. Whenever you see X in a converted mana cost, that means X is whatever you decide. So if you have 2, it has to have the 2 red mana, and if you have 5 mana after that, then that can be 5, 6, 7, 2, whatever you decide.
Sure Strike is a little card, a little instant card that I think is underestimated. I underestimate it quite often, and then people use it against me, and I'm like, darn,
Yeah.
I should have used that card. It's 1 and a red. A target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. So it's another one of those combat tricks, and it has first strike, which really is going to help you a lot. A lot.
Yeah, similar to Titanic Growth. Don't use it if it's not a combat trick. It's not removal.
Yeah.
Soul Seer, instant. This is a ridiculous card. I don't know how this got past R&D. I really don't. So it costs 3, which, it's decent. It's an instant, so you can use it anytime.
Mm-hmm.
And it does 5 damage. Now, yes, it's only to target creature or planeswalker, but that permanent also loses indestructible, so their indestructible god that they thought they could never lose is now dead. Their Heliod, 5/5 Heliod. Like, this is a ridiculous card. For 3, 5 damage. This is an auto-include. If you're not in red and you have this card, you might want to think about being in red.
Yeah. You're going to need that 5 damage for sure. And then Shock, good old Shock. For 1, it deals 2 damage to any target. So that's just a nice way to finish something off.
And you were saying this
or
is
do
old
plays.
artwork.
That is old artwork.
I'm so used
yeah.
to seeing kind of the new stuff. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
new artwork. And she's like, no, that's old.
Yeah.
I was like, guess I'm behind. Scorching Dragonfire, not a new card as well, but it costs 2 for 3 damage. Nothing wrong with that. It's to a creature or planeswalker, but if that creature dies, you get to exile it instead. So that's nice. It gets rid of graveyard
Or
shenanigans.
Planeswalker.
Yeah.
Which is really nice when you're getting rid of a Teferi or something like that.
Yeah.
That they like to bring back from the graveyard. Faith's Fetters for 3 and 1 white. It's an enchantment aura, so you put that on a permanent. It enters the battlefield, you gain 4 life, but that enchanted permanent can't attack or block, and its activated abilities can't be activated unless they're mana abilities. So that's a typical kind of white removal where you just put them in fetters like that, and they can't do anything with that big creature anymore.
Sorry, Tiny Up. Not the good way. Legion's Judgment for 3 is a sorcery. So that's why it's common, because it's a sorcery, because sorceries aren't as good as instants, but you get to destroy target creature with power 4 or greater. Nothing wrong with that.
Bye-bye, you're there, Colossal
Yep.
Dreadmaw. Then we have the Rambunctious Mutt, this little
Spitting
cute
that you
puppy
get.
dog. It's cute that I get that because that's
Yeah.
my dogs constantly. For 3 and 2 white, it when it enters the battlefield, destroy target artifact or enchantment an opponent controls. And this artwork is so funny because basically he's wrecking that artifact. Oh my god!
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah,
And
they
so
were-
we talked about this too, maybe being, like, it's in the removal section because it
Yeah.
is removal, but maybe being a sideboard
Yeah.
card because it costs 5.
quite a bit, yeah.
So, but it's got a body, so
Yeah.
it's a body with
3/4.
removal.
So
Nothing wrong.
just depends on your
Yeah.
situation.
Secure the Scene. So this is a 5 mana cost sorcery. But exile non-target permanent. Exile is
Target
very
non-land
beneficial.
permanent.
It's a permanent, so it can be their enchantment, their planeswalker, anything. And then you get a 1/1 soldier out of it. So,
They do.
or they do, yes.
Yeah.
But you replace their big Colossal Dreadmaw or their stupid dragon that they
Yeah.
opened with a 1/1 soldier and exile their creature so they can't get it back. That's great.
Swift Response is a 1 and a white, which is destroy target tapped creature. It's an instant, so you just use that as soon as possible.
Yeah.
It's a really, really good.
Even late game when they've got their bomb out or their big thing
Yeah.
out, I'll
gonna be swinging.
I'll save that because it doesn't matter how big it is. It just destroy target. I love it when I have these ones in my hand because I'm like, oh no, what am I gonna do? Oh, you're just gonna swing. I guess I can't do
Guess
anything.
I'm dead.
And I just leave my mana up. I'm sorry, I can't go ahead. I guess I'm dead. Ah, snap. I love it.
She's done it. Yes, she has.
Maybe. It's okay to play the damsel in distress from now on, from time, the odd time. Enthralling Hold for 3 and 2 blue is an enchantment aura. You enchant a creature, which is very much what blue does, and that creature can't, or I'm going to skip past that. Basically, you control enchanted creatures, so you're going to enchant that creature and steal it from them. However, it has a caveat. You can't choose an untapped creature. So you have to wait till they swing in. Again, similar to like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess you're going to swing at me with your big creature. Shoot. Please swing at me with your big creature.
And then on your turn, you're going to steal that.
And then steal it.
creature.
And then you can swing away.
Just the kind of tricks that Leslie always does. Okay, Frost Breath for 2 and a blue. It is an instant. Tap up to 2 target creatures. Those creatures don't untap during their controller's next untap step.
Mm-hmm.
Very typical blue craziness. Just
Block them for a couple turns.
get them out of the way so that you can do your job.
Mm-hmm. Unsubstantiate, another typical blue, for 2. It's an instant, and you get to return target spell or creature to its owner's hand. So, target spell.
How do you do that?
Well, you don't want to return their spell. It doesn't mean from their graveyard. Why would you do that? You're going to use this when it's on the stack. So basically, this is like a counter spell, but instead of that spell being countered and going to their graveyard, you're returning it to their hand. So that's basically the difference. Or a creature that is on the battlefield, you could use it for that as well. Or
It's
a
versatile.
creature that's
For 2.
yeah. Do you think you can return a creature that's on? No, because it's not a creature until it hits the battlefield.
Yeah.
It's just a spell.
Gotta let it hit first.
Sorry, my train of thought.
Alchemist's Gift for 1 black. It's an instant, and target creature gets +1/+1 and gains your choice of Death Touch or Lifelink until end of turn. I'll probably be choosing Death Touch on that because, again, that combat trick, they're swinging in with their Colossal Dreadmaw 6/6, and oh, my little 1/1 suddenly has Death Touch. Sorry.
Yeah.
And a 2/2, but that doesn't matter. Yeah, it dies, but so what?
I think the only reason you would ever use lifelink, especially in sealed, because lifelink doesn't really matter. It keeps you from losing the game, but it doesn't win you the game. Is like if you have your big bomb that's swinging in, and you desperately need some life, because now you finally got your bomb out.
You've stabilized. You want,
and then you can kind of like
back.
get your life back. Then you might want to use lifelink, but other than that, Duress, an older card, but great to get some knowledge. I love getting Duress on turn 1. Target opponent reveals their hand. You choose a non-creature, non-land card from it, and that player discards that card. So it can't do creatures, but other things you can get rid of. And at the very least, you know what they have in their hand, and you can plan around that.
Yes.
So.
And then we have Eliminate for 1 and a black. That's an instant. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with converted mana cost 3 or less. That's always a good thing. If you're finding they don't have anything with 3 or less, you just sideboard that out. But chances are they're going to have some sort of token or something. So it's converted mana cost. Tokens are 0. Just saying.
Just saying. So Fetid Imp is a 1/2 flyer. The reason we put it in this section is because you can pay 1 to give it Death Touch until the end of turn. So really, this is one that you just put on the battlefield, you keep it there, and you use it as a blocker when you need to use it as a blocker to remove their card. So
it's got a creature and that Alchemist Gift in one.
It's got a body, and then you can use the Death Touch.
Finishing Blow for 4 and a black. It's a little expensive, but it's an instant that destroys target creature or planeswalker. In sealed, this is just a great way to get rid of their stuff. You need it.
Again, it's expensive, but like even I'm going to refer to an old card again. Consigned to the Pit, when that was a thing, it helped, right? Get your removal in there. And as much removal as you can put in your deck, put that in. And then fill it up with dudes. Grasp of Darkness. Target creature gets -4/-4 until the end of turn. So something has indestructible. You can't destroy it, but you can give it minus counters, and then it dies. So
I know we keep harping about this removal thing, you guys, but Leslie and I have been doing better in Planeswalkers. In Planeswalkers. Oh my gosh. In pre-releases.
Not at speaking.
Wow. In pre-releases because we have focused more on removal.
Yeah.
And other people tend not to because they get all excited, but
well, even like playing on Arena, I was playing on Arena today, and my quest was kill your 25 of your opponent's creatures. So when I get that quest, I built a deck that has nothing but removal in it. It's just, I have like maybe 3 creatures. I have a Rankle, which is also removal. I have the Bone Crusher Giants and the...
I have the Haunt for Hightower in mine.
Yeah, and then Murderous Rider. So those are my kind of like, if I get those creatures out, that's fine, but I'm just playing it to finish my quest. So I just like Shock, Lava Coil, Bone Crusher Giant, Easy Prey, Heartless, whatever. And so you actually win with that one more than you'd think. I when I built it, I was like, I probably won't win with this. It's just let's kill creatures. The ones you don't win are like the Planeswalker ones.
Yeah.
But removal is important. That is the moral of the story.
Sorry for that.
We digress. Kite Sail Freebooter 2. This one is a great card because it's flyer, for one thing. So it has evasion as well. But when you play it, basically it's a duress. You get to look at the your opponent's hand and choose a non-creature, non-card from it, and you exile that. If they kill Kite Sail Freebooter, they get the card back, so it's not quite as good as Duress, where it just kind of puts it away, but you also get a body with it, which is why they get their card back. So
another card that I tend to like more often than others think for this one is Mind Rot for 2 and a black. It makes the target player discard 2 cards, so a lot of people don't like that card, but it's the number of times I've made people discard their last 2 cards in their hand, and it just puts them so far behind. So
and they've been waiting. They've been keeping that bomb in their hand until they have enough mana to play it, and all of a sudden now they're almost there, and you make them discard it.
Yeah,
they cry.
Yeah.
The point of Magic is to make people cry.
Yeah, for sure.
We're joking. I'm joking. Torment's Crypt is our next one. This is a colorless removal for 0. And basically you can sacrifice it and exile all cards from target player's graveyard. So the reason we call it removal is not because it's removing something from their hand or their battlefield, but it definitely helps with graveyard shenanigans. I would probably, it costs 0, so there's no risk in putting it in your deck, but it is a little bit more of a sideboard card because you don't know if they're playing graveyard shenanigans, so you don't want to use up that spot if they aren't. But definitely, it doesn't matter. If you open this card, it can go in any deck, put it in your sideboard, and keep it just in case.
For sure. So then we are on to the evasion section of our little video here. Evasion are the ways that you win the game. Basically, you want to get through and do some damage. So the first one we've got here is Garruk's Uprising, which I am quite excited about. It's 2 and a green, an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, draw a card. So yeah, I'm going to have that in green. And creatures you control have trample because it's green. And whenever a creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. So it's good when it comes out, and it's good as long as it sits there.
Yeah.
With the green deck, you're going to have Colossal Dreadmaws in there.
Yeah. Again, we don't typically recommend enchantments, but this is a great enchantment that has so many upsides, and it gives everything trample. Which is why it gets the evasion. So what is evasion before we move on to the next card? What kind of fits into that?
Things like, well, trample is evasion because even if it gets blocked, damage still goes through. Menace is evasion because they have to block with 2 things. Flying is evasion, obviously, because it's up in the air and they have to have flying to block that. What else?
those are the main ones that you'll see.
Yeah.
There's other that could possibly fit, but anything that kind of can get around their creatures
Yeah.
in some way, shape, or form. So Crash Through is our next one for just one. When you play it, you get to draw a card, which is great, but creatures you control gain trample until the end of turn. So again, that's giving your creatures trample. It only costs one, and you get to draw a card on that. So great little card there if you happen to be in red.
Bone Pit Brute for 4 and 2 red. It's a 4/5 with menace. And when it enters the battlefield, target creature gets +4/+0 until end of turn. So it's buffing up one of your other guys when it comes out. And then he needs to be dealt with because they won't want him there. 4/5 is hard to block.
So the next one, Alpine Watchdog. So fun fact, I have wanted a dog like this ever since the Neocitrin commercials. You know, with the little thing around his neck with the Neocitrin. So, give us a like if you remember that commercial. Anyways, this is a nice little 2/2 for 2, which usually is just a nice little filler, but he has vigilance, which is awesome. He can stay up. And so that's why we kind of put him in this as a nice little evasion card. It's not really evasion. Vigilance isn't really evasion, but he is definitely a 2/2 with upside, and so he's worth it.
Yeah. Then we have Angelic Ascension for 1 and a white. It is an instant where you can exile target creature or planeswalker. Its controller creates a 4/4 white angel creature token with flying. So we talked
why
about
isn't this
card.
in removal, Shauna?
Well, because you're not really going to remove their cards unless they have something really massive and you're like desperate and you want to make that massive thing into a little 4/4 flyer. But that's still bad for you. You want to exile your poor little puppy dog. You're going to exile him and make him become an angel. All dogs from heaven, right? So
all dogs go to heaven.
All dogs go to heaven. So you're going to send your little puppy dog to heaven, and he's going to come back as a white angel with flying.
That's a really good way to think about it.
So he's always there for you in one way or another. So that's what you're going to use it for.
Don't use it on theirs. Use it on yours. Yeah. Concordia Pegasus is a nice little 1/3 flyer. This one does really good work for you. I know it's only a 1 power, but if you can figure out ways to buff them up, and you know what, there's nothing wrong with ping, 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 ping. It's early game that you can play it, and it's a great little blocker if you need to have some blockers and keep them back a little bit.
Anytime these have come out before in other previous sets, it's done so much work. Gale Swooper for 3 and a white, a 3/2 flyer, and when it enters the battlefield, target creature gains flying until end of turn. So,
flyer that gives something else flying.
Yeah, flying, we have something else flying. It's pretty darn awesome.
So Keen Glide Master is our first blue card in the evasion section. So 1 and a blue for a human soldier, 2/1. This one is super nice because you can pay 3 to give creature flying until the end of turn, which is better than an enchantment because an enchantment will just go away to the graveyard when your creature dies. This one, they happen to kill your creature, you just put another one out. So they got to kill this guy, which is good distraction from the other stuff that's on the battlefield that you don't want him to necessarily kill as well. So
Mistral Singer for 2 and a blue, a 2/2 flyer that has prowess. So for prowess, the way that works is whenever you cast a non-creature spell, it gives this creature a +1/+1, gives it +1/+1 until the end of turn. So it is a really great way to, when you put out an enchantment or when you shock their creature, and then this one becomes a 3/3 all of a sudden. So it's really, prowess is really, really strong. I think it's something that's underestimated as well, especially if you're doing the spells matter kind of thing, which you might be doing with the blues. You could be, using ops to draw a card or something like that. So do that before. Give them +1 before you swing. It's going to be kind of crazy, potentially.
What's the difference between a +1/+1 counter and +1/+1? Like, should you mark that +1/+1, or what do you recommend there?
To me, the only time you should put a dice on your +1/+1 for +1 is when it's an actual counter, because that doesn't go away. People need to pay attention. And if you said that this creature gets +1/+1, they need to remember that.
There's nothing wrong with reminding them. Oh, by the way, just are you
Just
sure you
remember,
want to do that?
Favorite
This
block
guy,
has got +1/+1.
and you should do that. You should remind people in a
good
friendly,
sport.
casual game and good sportsmanship about their triggers and about your triggers and what's happening on the battlefield. But yes, a counter gets a die, a +1/+1 till the end of turn, does not. So, Dire Fleet Warmonger costs. It's a 3/3 for 3. It's our first multicolor card, so it does have black and red in it. But at the beginning of combat on your turn, you can sacrifice another creature, and if you do, Dire Fleet Warmonger gets +2/+2 and gains trample until the end of turn. So all you have to do is sacrifice a creature. He's a 5/5 with trample. This is potentially even a bomb because you can do that as many times as you want, right? Because it's an additional cost. So, yeah.
Yeah. It could be bad for the other player. Watcher of the Spheres. It's a white and a blue 2/2. Flying and creature spells with flying you cast cost 1 less to cast. So another reason to be into flying. Whenever another creature with flying enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So it makes him cheaper.
And he's
you're
got a
gonna wanna
book.
do that. And he's got a book. And yeah.
Sky Scanner. It's a 1/1
cheaper.
for 3. So why? But
Cheaper.
he has flying, so a little flying 1/1 is awesome, and you get to draw a card when it enters the battlefield. So because he's flying and you get to draw a card, it's worth that 3 mana cost for your little 1/1 that you're going to put out. It's
Definitely.
decent.
Underestimated card.
Yeah.
Then we're moving on into some of our aggressive strategy type cards. So these are cards that are basically meant to be swinging. You're swinging with them. Often they'll die, but that's okay because you're being aggressive. You're forcing that other person to do something. So the first one is a saber-toothed mauler, big kitty cat that Leslie likes. 3 and a green, a 3/3, and at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, put a 1/1 counter on saber-toothed mauler and untap it. So you're being aggressive. Your stuff's going to die. He's going to get bigger. He's going to have trample because you're going to have the Garuk thing out. He's going to be really good.
Yeah, I think this is going in my cat pioneer deck if I get it.
Yep.
Canopy Stalker for 4.
Another one.
He's another cat. He's a 4/2 aggressive little guy. He must be blocked if able, so he has a little bit of removal in him. And when he dies, you get to gain 1 life for each creature that died this turn. So he is super aggressive and super killy.
It's super killy. 4/2. Stab, stab. Unleash Fury. You're going to do that to that card.
Look at
You're
that
gonna. It's
punch.
an instant 1 and a red to double the power of target creature until end of turn. So you're going to be swinging with that 4/2, and it's now an 8/2. Sorry for your luck on the other side of the table.
And it's an instant. So when do we cast instants?
During combat.
Pitchburn Devil for 4 and a red, so 5 converted mana cost. It's a nice little 3/3, which seems expensive, but if you think about it as a 3/3 that comes in with a lightning strike attached to it, then all of a sudden the 5 mana cost makes sense. So when it dies, it's going to deal 3 damage to any target. It's going to make them not want to block it, especially not with their big thing. They're going to block it with their small things because, you know, and then so you either take out 2 of their small things by killing it with their 3/3 and doing the lightning strike on another 3 thing, or they block it with their big thing and you do an extra 3 damage to like finish it off. So really great little card there for aggressive.
The Anarchy Ogre for 2 and a red, a 4/2. I've used this card before. It's so aggressive.
Yeah.
It's just getting in there and swinging for damage. Yeah, he dies so well.
Yeah, vanilla guy.
Yeah.
That's great. Igneous Cur. So I had to like, let's sound this out in my head.
Science.
For 2, it is a little 1/2, but he has fire breathing as well. It's a nice little elemental dog, but the fire breathing costs 2 because he gets +2/+0 until the end of turn. So nice little swing and make him big. And then you double the power.
Yeah, exactly. That synergy we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Chandra. I can't talk today. For 1 and a red, it's a little elemental lizard for 1/3, and whenever a source you control deals non-combat damage to an opponent, it gets +1/+0 and gains double strike until end of turn. So you're going to be using those shocks or those whatever. You've got lots of things that you can do.
But spells matter.
Spells matter, yes.
So you got to be careful if you want to include
Yes.
that. But it is aggressive. Burn Bright is one of those instants that you could put in this deck. Creatures you control get +2/+0 until the end of turn. Nothing wrong with that. You're going to go wide. You're going to swing in. You're going to get everything +2, and all of a sudden you win the game.
Battle Rattle Shaman for 3 and a red. I said that correctly.
Yes, you did.
For 2/2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may have target creature get +2/+0 until end of turn. So adding to that whole aggressive piece. Playing with lots of guys.
Yep. Bolthound, another little elemental dog here. He has haste. He's a 2/2 for 3, and when Bolthound attacks other creatures you control, so all other creatures you control, get +1/+0 until the end of turn. So he's one that you want to attack with everything, and then you burn bright, and yeah, super awesome aggressive.
Daybreak Charger, a beautiful horse here, unicorn I should say. It's for 1 and a white. When it enters the battlefield, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. It's a 3/1, so it's going to be swinging. Its main job is to swing.
Tempered Veteran is another 1/2 for 2, but he has this really cool, I guess you could call it fire breathing, but better. Play 1, tap him to put a 1/1 counter on target creature with a 1/1 counter on it. So it has to have a 1/1 counter first, and then you can put another 1/1 counter on it. So there's a little bit of situational in there, but you can use him as a blocker and do your counter synergy. There's a few cards in there for counter synergy. I think I would put this one in there. We put it in the aggro section because it has the potential to do a bunch of aggro, but it is a bit situational. Of course, he does have a 6 mana cost where you can put a 1/1 counter on target creature. So that helps if they get rid of your creature with a counter on it, but that's later game, so worth it anyways.
I think he's going to do some work.
Yeah, he'll do some work.
Vryn Wingmare, a Pegasus. We like our Pegasi.
Yeah, I think so.
For 2 and a white, flying, and non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. So you're slowing them down on their shenanigans while you get your own flying dudes in. 2/1.
And then onto the blue, we have Jeskai Elder for it's our blue 1/2 for 2. This one has prowess, so we've already talked about what prowess is, and it deals combat. If it deals combat damage to a player, then you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. So you do have to discard if you draw. It is a may, so that's fine. But the prowess is what makes it aggro. The other ability is just maybe it might happen. So don't rely on that.
Talarian Kraken for 4 and 2 blue. It's a 4/6, a big guy. And whenever you draw a card, you may pay 1, and when you do, you may tap or untap a target creature. So that can be your side of the board. It can be their side of the board. It all depends on what you have going on. So we thought that was a really useful card to have in your deck.
Yeah. You're always going to have 1 to pay. So this one we talked about, Melphis Scythe, we talked about as probably going to be an underrated card. But it's an equipment, which we love because they stay on the battlefield. Its equip cost is only 1. So equipping, you can only do at sorcery speed, but that's okay. This one, equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each soul counter on it. Basically what happens is whenever the creature that it's attached to dies, its soul gets sucked into the scythe, and now it has a 1/1 counter on it. And it's just going to keep getting 1/1 counters on it. So super aggressive, attach it to all those things that you don't care about. You're just going to swing, swing, swing. It doesn't matter if they die because you're going to attach it to something else, and it's just going to keep sucking all the souls up, and pretty soon they can't deal with it, and then you're going to put it on your trampler and trample in for so much damage.
That's right. Because you can move it on to something else as well.
Exactly.
It comes out with one, too. It comes out with one at the very beginning.
Yes, exactly.
Masked Blackguard for 1 and a black. It's a 2/1 flash creature, so I like to play this on their turn, and then next turn he's swinging, because you can pay the 2 and a black extra, hopefully, on the turn that he's swinging, and it gets +1/+1 until end of turn, so he becomes a 3/2 on his turn.
Nice and aggressive.
Aggro.
So this next section is just the dudes. So this is like you filled out your deck. Please remember the 40. You only have to put 40 cards in your deck. There is such a temptation for new players to just be like, these are all good cards. I'm going to put them all in and I'm going to make a 60 card deck. And you can do that, but you won't get to your cards that you like as fast as your opponent will get to their cards. So it's a really good idea to try and stick to 40. However, if you do have spots left in your deck, the dudes are what you go for.
Yep.
So these are just cards that are good filler cards. They have some upside. They might be, just basically little, your 2/2 for 2s are kind of those types of things. So the first one is Snare Spinner. It is a 1/3 for 2. It has reach, which is great, and whenever it blocks a creature with flying, it gets +2 until the end of turn. So it is a 3/3 when it blocks, which is great little upside for it. It's not going to win you the game, but this is a nice little filler card.
Defense. Truffle Snout, little cutie guy here, is a 2 and a green for 2/2. When it enters the battlefield, you get to choose one. You can put a 1/1 counter on it, or you can gain 4 life. So generally, you're probably going to put that 1/1 counter on. Depends on the situation, but that's what we thought. He'd be a little guy, good guy to have out there if you're doing counters.
And then Llanowar Visionary. It's a great little filler for if you are in green. He's a 2/2 for 3. However, he enters the battlefield, you get to draw a card, and he taps for mana. So those two upsides actually make him really quite powerful. He's actually, I think, costs less than he should.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with that, because I'm going to put him in my decks.
Yeah. Then we have Garruk's Gorehorn. It is one of those cards that you might, if you don't have anything else to put in the 5 spot, it's a big 7/3. Our concern is that it's a little bit easy to get rid of.
Yeah.
But he's sure going to do some damage if he swings just once.
Fierce Empathy is a 2, or it's only a 1/1 for 3. So why? But when it enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost of 6 or greater, reveal it, and put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So you spent so much time at the beginning of this pre-release deciding what your bomb is going to be. Most of the bombs that are out there right now are 6 or 7 mana cost. You are going to be able to go and search for that. So if you have it and your bomb or your creatures, you have a few things that are you can go search for. It's a good little filler card to put in there. If you don't have anything to search for that's worth putting out, don't put them in your deck.
No.
But
it's going to work for you. Drowsing Pteranodon. It's for 1 and a green, a 3/3 defender. But having a 3/3 defender is pretty good because he actually kills things. But as long as you control a creature with power 4 or greater, it can attack as though it didn't have defender. You're in green. You're going to have a creature. Aren't you?
yeah.
You better.
The only reason he was in dudes instead of one of the higher categories was because he's defender and you don't know for sure.
Yeah.
It's situational. So Burl Fist Oak is a 2/3 tree folk for 4. And whenever you draw a card, which is every beginning
turn.
phase, every turn, every draw step, it gets +2/+2 until the end of turn. So you play him, he's a 2/3, but every time you draw a card after that, which is every turn, he gets +2/+2. He is a great little filler card.
4 or 5. He becomes.
He's a 4/5.
Yeah. Use him. Turret Ogre for 3 and a red, a 4/3 with reach. When it enters the battlefield, if you control another creature with power 4 or greater, it deals 2 damage to each opponent. So that's just a bonus if it doesn't happen. If you don't happen to have that, that's okay. But it is pretty nice to have a 4/3 with reach in all these little flyers that are coming out.
I get all the elemental dogs. Chandra's Magmut. Magmut. That's awesome. You guys are awesome. He's a 2/2 for 2, and you can tap it to deal 1 damage to target player or planeswalker, which is great because you always, if they get a planeswalker out, want to be able to do 1 damage to it. If they have a little 1/1, which they may or may not. But it's a 2/2 for 2, so it's a good filler with upside.
Yeah, and quite often you have all these board filled with tutus that you can't get through with, but this little guy's going to do some work for
Yeah.
you even when he can't get through. So
Exactly.
Havoc Jester for 4 and a red. It's a 5/5 devil. Whenever you sacrifice a permanent, it deals 1 damage to any target. So definitely, and if you're doing some sacrificing, this is a really good one to put in that 5 spot for sure, I think.
And then Heartfire Immolator for 2 is a 2/2. It's got prowess, which makes it a decent little filler card. You might not have some cards that trigger his prowess. You can also pay 1 and sacrifice him to deal damage equal to its power to target creature or planeswalker. So you could use him as removal if you cast a few spells beforehand.
Yeah.
Maybe they've gotten that thing that gets counters every time you draw a card up to like 10. You use a couple shocks on him, you get some prowess, then you sacrifice him. And so feel free to like stack. Think about those things as you're playing. Stack those triggers.
Celestial Enforcer for 2 and a white, a human cleric that's a 2/3, which is good, I think. And you can pay 1 and a white and tap target creature. Activate this ability only if you control a creature with flying. So there's a lot of good flyers. That 1 and a white and tapping this can do a lot of work for you if you can make that happen. But otherwise, it's just a good body.
Yeah. Seasoned Hallowblade. This one we talked about, it kind of what we waffled back and forth. Should it be an aggro? Should it be kind of downgraded? The reason we downgraded it to just a dude is because its ability is not really relevant. You have to discard a card in order for it to gain indestructible until the end of turn. And you have to discard a card and then you tap Seasoned Hellblade. So as a 3/1, he's automatically, if you want to use him as an aggro, you're going to be attacking with him. So you can't then tap him to save him. So the only time you could save him is if he wasn't attacking. And what's the point of not attacking with a 3/1? So we downgraded him. He's an okay filler card. You could just attack with him as a 3/1 or leave him as a blocker, but he doesn't make the grade unless if you have other stuff that's better.
Yeah. Or I could do a puppy.
A cute one.
Selfless Savior for 1. And he's a little 1/1, and you can sacrifice it. Another target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. So there's been lots of cards coming out in various sets that you can sacrifice it to protect something else. And that's what a good trusty dog is here to do, is protect you and love you for no matter what you are. So there you go. That's what
You
he's
got
doing.
the rub your tummy one too.
I did. That's true.
Staunch Shieldmate is a 1/3 for 1. Nothing wrong with that. It's vanilla. It doesn't do much except for sit there on the battlefield and keep their 2/2s from hitting you.
Yeah.
Or killing their 3/1s.
True. Valorous Steed, another unicorn for 4 and a white, a 3/3 with vigilance. And when it enters the battlefield, you get to create a 2/2 white knight creature token with vigilance too. So you get 2 for 1. So that's why it's a little bit more expensive, because you're getting 5 power and 5 toughness for that. So
And it's got vigilance.
yeah,
Good
that's
filler.
always nice.
Roaming Ghostlight. It is a 3/2 flyer, which is super awesome. It's in the dudes because it costs 5, which I don't love. And when it enters the battlefield, you can return up to 1 target non-spirit creature to its owner's hand. It would be even better if it had... Actually, what would make this a play card is give it flash so that you can use it as a combat trick. But maybe if you had a card that gave all things flash.
Could be.
But
There
that's
are
not
such a
in
thing.
this set.
Not in this set. Teferi's Protege, my friend, 2 and a blue for 2. It's a 2/3, and you can pay 1 and a blue and tap this to draw a card, then discard a card. So it's just the typical blue stuff that's nice to have in your deck if you need to draw and discard, which is what you do.
You know Teferi is a librarian lover.
I know.
Tide Skimmer is a 2/3 4/4 flying, and whenever you attack with 2 or more creatures with flying, you get to draw a card. It's fun. It's a little bit situational, so that may or may not happen, but because it's a flyer, we thought we'd throw it in the dudes that you could definitely put that in as filler.
Voldalian Arcanist for 1 and a blue. It's a 1/3, and you can tap it to add mana. Spend this mana only to cast instants and sorceries. So it's really good if you're doing a Spells Matter deck. It keeps you alive and lets you get cheaper spells, which is always good.
Now this next one is a card that sounds really great when you read it. And you're like, of course, I'm going to play this because I get a 5/5 demon. So what is this? Archfiend Vessel. For 1, you get a 1/1 with lifelink. That's okay. But Archfiend Vessel enters the battlefield. If it entered from your graveyard, then you can or you cast it from your graveyard, exile it. If you do, create a 5/5 black demon creature token with flying, which is the cool thing that could happen with this card. And yes, there are cards in this set that can bring things back from your graveyard, but this is one card that is situational and may or may not happen. So there's nothing worse than building your deck and then when you lost the game saying, if only I had gotten this, I had this in my hand, and if it was in my graveyard, if I had gotten this, then I would have won. People hate hearing that. Don't say that.
Because you didn't win.
You didn't win. And that is okay. It's okay to be like, good game. So we put it in as filler because it might be fun to put in if you have some stuff that brings things back from the graveyard. But if you don't have anything that brings anything back from the graveyard, a 1/1 for 1 with lifelink is not worth putting in your deck.
It's really hard to make happen in a limited
Yeah.
environment. Cage Zombie for 2 and a black, a 2/3. It has the ability 1 and a black that you can tap it, and each opponent loses 2 life, and actually this ability only if a creature died this turn. So tricky to make work. It's just a nice filler.
Yep. Body's good.
Yeah.
Another good body, Deathbloom Thaliad. It's a 3/2 for 3, and when it dies, you get a replacement 1/1 for blocking. So nothing wrong with that as filler for your deck.
Crypt Lurker for 3 and a black. It's a 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice a creature or discard a creature card. If you do, draw a card. So again, you got to be careful with the sacrificing and discarding stuff into your graveyard because there's not a lot of ways to get it back again. So be careful.
Yeah, you only got 40 cards.
But it is
right?
a 3/4.
Yeah. Walking Corpse, 2/2 for 2.
Yeah.
It's a zombie bear. Good
A
filler.
zombie bear. Palladium Mirror for 3. It's a 2/2, but you can tap it and add 2 colorless mana, which can help you quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a body that gives you some mana, so
Yeah.
that's decent filler for sure. Short Sword, equipment, there's nothing wrong with putting some equipment in there. The nice thing about equipment versus enchantments is equipment stays on the battlefield. It only gives your creature +1/+1, but sometimes that's all you need.
All right, so then we're going to go into a few cards that we kind of liked, but they're kind of a little situational, but they might be handy in the right situation. So we thought we'd bring them up with this set as we're going through. Track Down, which is a beautiful looking card. It's a 1 and a green, a sorcery that you can scry 3, which is really good. And then reveal the top card of your library. And if it's a creature or land card, draw a card. So basically, you're going to look for a creature or land card in your top 3 cards. So it might be one that you want to put in your deck.
Yeah, if
You're
you're
kind of
if you're in green, that's nothing wrong with that at all.
being able to find that stuff you need.
It doesn't fit in the bread, but it's
Yeah.
worth putting in, so
Yeah.
that's why we wanted to talk about it.
Yeah.
So Run Afoul is an instant. Target opponent sacrifices a creature with flying. It's kind of situational. This is one that you would put in your sideboard because you don't know if they're playing a flyer. The chances are in this set they're probably going to have a flyer, so
They watched our video.
if they watched our video, they'll have some flying. But anyway, target opponent has to sacrifice that. You might want to put that in your sideboard and bring it in game 2. It is only, the one card, but yeah.
Ranger's Guile for 1. It's an instant as well. Target creature you control gains +1/+1 and hexproof until end of turn. It's a really nice combat trick for sure. But you can only have so many combat tricks. You need to have creatures. So kind of just depends what you need.
It doesn't fit in the bread, but it would be
Yeah.
a good card, right? So Ornery Dilophosaur is a 2/2 for 4. It has Death Touch, which is great. Whenever it attacks, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, it gets +2/+2 until the end of turn. So it has the potential to be a 4/4 for 4, but because of you have to have a creature with 4 or greater, you could potentially pay for to have something sitting on the battlefield that you can't really use. It's a good, I guess you could maybe fill it out for some removal, but if it was a 2-2 for 2 or a 2-2 for 3 with Death Touch, it makes the dude section, but this is kind of like a maybe. I don't know. You have to have the right situation.
Gnarled Sage, it's for 3 and 2 green, a 4/4, which is pretty darn good, but it is 5. It does have reach as well, and its ability that as long as you've drawn 2 or more cards this turn, it gets +0/+2 and has vigilance. The chances are pretty slim you're going to have that. It's not something to build around, but it is nice to have a 4/4 with reach.
Worth talking about for sure. Capture Sphere we put in here because it is a great little card. It's flash. It costs 4. You enchant a creature, and then when it enters the battlefield, basically you're tapping that creature, and it doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. So you basically just lock that thing down. However, it is super hard to make control-y things, and so we have a few counter spells we're going to talk about in the next little bit, work in a sealed format. Control decks typically need to be built around so that you have enough control to make something happen. But if you are playing with some prowess things, and you have 2 or 3 prowess things, then some of these instants and sorceries, and this one for sure, tapping something until it leaves the battlefield would be kind of one of those things that you could put in.
Yeah, it's removal, but there's better removal.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically.
Yeah.
Miscast for 1 blue, which is crazy awesome instant that you can counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller pays 3. That's really, really good in a constructed deck, but in this one where most people aren't playing a lot of instances and sorceries, it's probably just going to sit in your hand, not do anything. So just sideboard that in if you're coming across somebody that is playing a Spells Matter type deck. It's a good one to have for that.
Yeah. So again, these are cards that we don't think you should discount because they're good cards, but you only want to put them in certain situations. So Lofty Denial is another one of those. Counter target spell unless its controller plays 1. If you have a creature with flying, counter that spell unless the controller pays 4. So if you're playing with blue-white fly or any flyers, if you're playing with blue something flyers or just blue flyers, this is a great card to put in your deck. If not, that extra 1 they're probably going to have unless you use it really early in the game, and then while you're setting up your board, you're saving those 2 mana just to maybe cast this. So, but it is an instant, so if you're playing Prowess or Spells Matter, that would work really well with that as well. So,
Library Larcenist, we had to bring that in because it's a library larcenist.
No other reason. We're just going to play it.
Rogue. I like Merfolk too. So.
Yeah.
And rogues. So, 2 and a blue. It is, whenever it attacks, though, you draw a card. So this is a really, really good card to make into a flyer or somehow have a death touch or something like that because you want to make sure you can swing and let you draw cards, which is really nice.
But it does have the potential to just sit there because you can't get in.
Exactly. It's just a little guy.
Rousing Read. This library larcenist has given us a rousing read. We really liked this card for 2, and not just because it's about reading. Enchant creature, and then when rousing read enters the battlefield, you get to draw 2 cards, then discard a card. So you draw 2 and only have to discard 1, and then enchanted creature gets +1/+1 and has flying. So speaking of giving that thing flying, that now you have these 2 things. suddenly things are going good.
Good card. Pestilent Haze for 1 and 2 black. It is a sorcery that you get to choose 1. All creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn, or you remove 2 loyalty counters from each planeswalker. So because it's sorcery speed, we thought it would, so people see it coming. We thought it's better as a sideboard card, so if you're playing against somebody with planeswalkers, it's a really good one to bring in to try to deal with that, or if they're playing with lots of tokens or something like that. So it's not great removal compared to some of the other ones.
And we talked about that little 1/1 for 1 that you might want to play from your graveyard. Well, Rise Again would help you with that. So if you had those, then you might want to play with this. The only reason it's in the maybe not is because it does cost 5. So to bring something back, you have to really want to bring that thing back. So do you want to take up a spot in your 40 cards for something that you might want to use and might not want to use? So that's up to you.
This set also has these shrines, and they're kind of not great in our opinion for limited, but this one might be the Sanctum of Stone Fangs for 1 and a black. It has at the beginning of your pre-combat main phase, each opponent loses X life and you gain X life, where X is the number of shrines you control. So for sure they're going to be losing 1 life all the time, and you gaining 1 life, so that's kind of nice, but it's... Yeah. Do you want to take up a slot that you could have a nice creature in?
And you might. It depends
what you're doing.
Depends.
You got a whole bunch of shrines.
Got all the bread filled out and you have spots left. Destructive Tampering for 3. It's destroy target artifact or creatures with flying can't block this turn. Put that in your sideboard. It's situational depending on what they're playing, but you could definitely use this card against lots of decks.
Kinetic Augur for 3 and a red. It has trample, and its power is equal to the number of instances and sorceries in your graveyard. When it enters the battlefield, you discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards. So it is nice for card draw, and you are going to fill up your graveyard, but you have to be playing that Lands Matter for this to be, or not Lands Matter, sorry, the Spells Matter for this to be useful.
Yeah. But pair that with Spellgorger Weird as another Spells Matter. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a 1/1 counter on Spellgorger Weird. So we were talking about these prowess cards because there is quite a few of them. I think you would want at least 3, maybe even 4 good prowess creatures to decide to go in that category. Because then all of a sudden now you have some aggression and some control in there.
This one is better than a prowess creature because it stays on.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, that's right. It is a counter.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding.
Traitorous Greed for 3 and a red. This is a crazy sorcery that you gain control of target creature until end of turn. Untap that creature, gains haste, and you add 2 mana of any color as well. So you could maybe make some crazy stuff happening, plus add to your prowess and stuff with this card. Maybe sacrifice that stolen creature. Just again depends on whether you can get that synergy to happen. It's really, really situational. Be careful.
Be careful. So this next card has super awesome flavor text. Experiments aren't necessarily failures, just a different kind of success. I think that's Ral in there. Who knows? I think so. Anyways, Experimental Overload is 2 and a blue and a red for a sorcery. You get to create an XX blue and red weird creature token where X is the number of instants and sorceries in your graveyard, which could potentially be a lot. Then you may return an instance and sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand, so you get that back, and then you exile this. So again, it's kind of situational, but if you are playing Spells Matter and you have lots and you pull this might even make me go into Spells Matter a little bit. But it's only 1 card in your deck, and 1 card won't necessarily win you a game.
Yes.
Unless you get a 12/12 out of it or something like that. Then
if you have that many instances in spell sorceries, I'd be wondering about. You might be dead.
You might be dead.
Twin Blade Assassins. We hummed and hawed about this card too. It's a 5/4 for 3 and a green and a black. Beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, draw a card. So it is just a good body to have out there. With black and green, you probably have planned for having creatures die because you're being aggressive and you have death triggers. So situational, whether it's better than just a 5/5 or 5/4. Yeah, I think that's it.
That's it.
I think that's it.
That's it.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. There's a lot of good cards. So I don't know if you're going to pre-release. It's been kind of sad that we missed Aquaria. We didn't do a video for that, but we're really happy to be back at doing the pre-release videos. It's something we love. We hope that you enjoyed. We hope that you have fun. Thank you for watching or listening. If you're looking for us, you can find us on podcast. You can see us on YouTube. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Twitch. So follow us. Let us know what you're looking forward to. Send us some pictures or some comments about what you found in pre-release or if you were able to attend a pre-release. And until next time, tap those magic cards and have fun doing it. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.